Today's a very serious topic for me. You see, it's 5 years ago this January. I was in Michigan, and my mom called me. And I, of course, pick up the phone. Your mom calls you. He's like, yeah. I was like, hey, Mom, how's it going? And on the other side, I could hear my mom crying. Give me a second. And through my mom's tears, I could hear her saying, it's Willie. I'm like, Willie, my brother. What's going on with my brother? She says, Willie, he doesn't believe in Jesus anymore. And I was like, what? What are you talking about? And I finished that conversation. I called him. I rehearsed this. I never did this in rehearsal, by the way. It's unplanned. But I called him right away. I started talking to him. I was like, what's going on, man? And my brother goes off, this is all a lie. It's just a fairy tale. It's all fake. And it was very clear, very fast that he had already jumped ship. And he was swimming in the ocean of atheism. And one of the hard parts for me, the part I was most upset about, was he never gave me a chance to talk to him. I have 8 years of college in this, man. I stay up late at night just reading for fun about all sorts of stuff, right? And I have 8 years of college in science and theology. And once he jumps ship, it's so hard to swim back sometimes, because once someone makes a major decision like that, it's very personal. It isn't just logical and evidence, right? It's very personal, it's very emotional, and it's a big uphill walk back. I was so sad that I never had a chance to talk to my brother. I didn't even know. I knew he had questions. He was always a free thinker, a little bit crazy, kind of like me, right? But I never had a chance to talk with him. I had no idea his faith was hanging by a thread. So today, I want to have an honest conversation. Promise, no more crying. But an honest conversation. There's people in this room, your faith, not everyone, there's some people, it's a big enough room, enough people here. Some of the people here, your faith, maybe just like my brother, is just hanging by a thread. You just hold on. You have these questions that your childhood faith doesn't answer. You grew up, but maybe your faith didn't. Maybe you're seeing things around you, you're like, man, that makes no sense to me. I want to believe this, but this just isn't adding up. And so I just want to ask you today, can we talk first? I got a whole bunch of Starbucks cards here too, so if you don't answer in today's sermon, don't worry, I didn't pay for them, the church did. You probably paid for them. But we'll go to Starbucks. Let's talk first. There's many people here, you might have some similar questions, and you're almost ready to jump. Maybe some of you have already jumped ship. When my brother jumped ship, he said, not a few members of our church in Calgary, Calgary Central, came to him because they felt safe and said, you know what, I don't believe either. I'm just along with my family for the ride. I don't have the courage to tell my wife or my parents or my kids. I just go through the motions. Maybe that's you. Can we talk? And if that's not you feeling solid in your faith, that's awesome. But I promise you, someone you care about is struggling. Someone you care about is struggling. The biggest faith movement right now in Western society, not around the world is shrinking proportional to population. But in Western society here, the biggest growing group when it comes to faith is the nuns. They're not necessarily becoming atheists. They just put on the survey, none of the above. None of the above. Vancouver, Metro Vancouver, we're a part of, 42% non-religious. That's us. Whereas right next door, we have the Bible Belt. It's not really clear where there's more churches per capita, either Abbotsford or Chilliwack. Some discussion about that. But even there's going to be a lot of nuns, or people ready to become nuns. Not Catholic nuns, but nuns. None of the above. The list of religion, nothing. I'm just out. I'm out. Well, let's talk about this first. And of course, the elephant in the room here, start the conversation, is how is it that one brother ends up a pastor and the other brother ends up an atheist? Now, like most nuns, wouldn't describe themselves as an atheist. He describes himself as a humanist. I double-checked, got his permission to share today. I double-checked his own description. He would describe himself as a humanist. But essentially, there's no God, there's nothing supernatural. There's no miracles, nothing. And so, to simplify the conversation, we'll kind of categorize that as atheism today. Well, how does this end up? One's a pastor and one's an atheist. First, I'll share very briefly my experience. Excuse me one second. Didn't need to. All right, we're back on. Well, first of all, when I was 16, thank you. Thank you. I brought my props up, didn't bring this one here up. When I was 16 years old, I spent 2 summers with my dad. So I grew up with a single mom, and although we went to church all the time, just in my experience, you need to learn how to be a man of God from a man of God. Not trying to judge anybody or stereotype anything. That's just my honest experience. I hadn't spent time with my dad very much since grade 4. My parents separated. And I went and spent 2 summers pretty much 24/7, side by side, working on the farm with a man of God. No, I didn't get a lot of evidence, right? My dad has a grade 3 education. I promise you, he wasn't talking to me about the theory of relativity and the Big Bang. But just that experience with my father was so opposite. When I came back after that summer from Saskatchewan back to Alberta, my girlfriend had the opposite experience. She worked in Drumheller as a lifeguard, and when we started talking, she said, well, I've been thinking this summer, this isn't really my faith, this is my parents' faith. And then I shared, well, my experience was very different. I think from the summer, I think if God is real, I should start living like it. And that was probably one of the biggest U-turns in my life. I got close to Brian Wall, the Mountain View Summer Camp director here, is my youth pastor. Then after those 2 summers with Dad, I spent 2 summers at Foothills Christian Camp. And again, no profound intellectual insights. It was just I was working side by side with all these other awesome young adults. I'm sorry, it came out wrong. But I was working with all these awesome Christian young adults, and God was fun. And we saw God change lives. It was a powerful, personal experience. Well, after that, I went and I spent 5 years studying science and then theology, mixing with psychology and sociology. At Christian University. Then it was called CUC, now it's called Burman University. And there I started getting some big boy questions. And when I had these questions, I could go to someone with a PhD in history, in philosophy, in science. I mean, we had chemistry, biology, ecology. It was there. I had variety. A PhD in theology. I'd go and ask the hardest questions I had, right, in the safety of a closed door with this professor who was a top expert in his or her field of study. And that was important for me because my high school answers didn't cut anymore. They were fine. Nothing wrong with my Sabbath school teachers, but I was in high school. So I got answers appropriate to that level. Well, those answers don't compete with PhD questions, amen? And so I got PhD answers there. Then after serving here for a few years, I went to seminary. There's still some pretty real struggles I had. between some historical stuff, some theological stuff, one particular between the science and religion. That was a struggle for me. I spent a lot of time reading there, and just some hard corners I felt I was in. And there was a professor there, Dr. Martin Hanna, and he had a PhD in the interaction between faith and science. He had a PhD in that exact corner that I was struggling in. And I spent a few hours in it. I just felt like he just kind of broke me out of that corner. He didn't brainwash me. He just asked me some really, really insightful questions. Well, what about this? Well, this is the box, and what about this over here? I'm like, it doesn't fit in boxes. I thought I was in a box. It was very important to me, probably one of the key people in my life to help me hold on to my faith. Then after that, I quit being a pastor. I quit my job. I quit my career. I jumped ship, not on the side of moving away from faith, but into faith, because that was the only way I figured out to go and follow God's call that I was feeling to work with inner city young people. And I saw God. I just jumped. It was annoying. I was like, God, put water first in the pool. He's like, nope. So I jumped. Better put water in, it's going to hurt. And he did. You know, the classic story, I got to be quick here, got a lot to cover, but the classic story, I was running out of money, lots of poor kids coming to church. Poor kids aren't bringing no money my way. And I was asking everybody rich I knew. I probably called some of you guys in this church. I was calling Alberta, I was calling Saskatchewan. I was like, I need money. And actually, Canadians gave a lot more. But there in America, I was struggling. Richest nation, my foot. I want to see some of that. Came up the wrong way, sorry. Everybody was telling me no. And then someone found me. I didn't know this person existed. Someone found me and offered to help. I asked them for 35 and they gave me 150 grand. Now maybe that was luck. But that was like 2 months before I went bankrupt. So maybe that was luck, but to me it's at least highly suspicious. So it's kind of like you have faith is like a rubber band and your questions kind of stretch the rubber band, right? Well, working with my dad reinforced my faith, right? 2 summers at summer camp reinforced it, more experiential. Then 5 years at a Christian university reinforced it. Going to seminary, being around some of the brightest minds in the world church reinforced it. And then seeing God do these miracles, he doesn't do them for fun. It's actually, I have an annoyance with God, his pattern of miracles in my life, right? Honestly. But the way I saw God work, a little sooner next time, I saw him work. If you come to me and say there's no God, I'm like, man, you got an uphill battle to fight with me. We can talk for a long time. And I'll listen too, I'll listen to. If I go to Starbucks, I promise I'll try and spend more time listening than talking. There'll be a miracle right there. Well, my brother's experience was very different. See, my brother, we grew up same family, same belief system, but my brother, the same age that I went to work with my father, my brother never did. Just short visits, not the same, but he would read the Playboy and Penthouse magazines. I saw them too, but I still believed they were wrong. And I was looking for in them like a lot of young men. I was looking for the pretty pictures, right? Be honest, not saying it's right, just saying how it was. Well, my brother read the articles, and he adopted the morality of like, yeah, this is silly, waiting for marriage before you have sex. And he rejected the anti-fun God or the anti-sex God. His faith got stretched a little bit more. Then where I went to a Christian university, he went to a public university, University of Calgary, and 1 semester at University of Mexico City. And one class in particular, evolutionary psychology, basically teaches that we're just really intelligent apes. As he took that class, I'm serious, that's basically what it is, right? It's just evolution, that's all there is. So he took that class, he looked at the explanation it offered for human behavior. He compared that with his observation experience and said, wow, this class in evolutionary psychology, this explains the way people behave way better than how I grew up in the church. His faith was stretched a little bit more, right? And then he looked at our family, and I grew up very conservative, Seventh-day Adventist Reform movement. Just take the most conservative Adventists and make a church out of them. That's how I grew up. and really big. We have the truth right here. We have it. And so, okay, you have the truth. And they don't. Okay, they don't. Well, then we looked, and both in my Canadian family in Saskatchewan and my Brazilian family in Brazil, we looked in both our families, and there were these decades-long family fights that went on. And you look at it and be like, hey, if you have the truth, if God is real and God is love, then how come you can't get along with your own family? It's not a week-long fight. We're talking decades, still going on now. I'm embarrassed by it. I don't share it very often. It's embarrassing to me. But if God works, why isn't he working in your life? And he rejected the God that doesn't work. And he was having these different questions kind of added up. I didn't know they were building. Then somewhere along the way, I'm not really sure on the time, but he saw a Richard Dawkins video. Also has a book about this called The God Delusion. And he saw the video. And he said it didn't convince him. I double-checked the story. It didn't convince him. It confirmed ideas he already had. It confirmed questions he already had. This religion thing just isn't working for me. And in his words, it confirmed these thoughts and ideas he already had, and that weakened his faith further. And then the straw that broke the camel's back was he was in Saskatchewan. And, we were Sabbath keepers there, and it was Friday sunset. Right? And as the sun literally goes down, as Seventh-day Adventists, we believe we enter the holy Sabbath day, Friday at sundown, whatever time that is. And so there, we like to have worship at sundown. They don't have kids zone practice there. And so my brother and his son said, oh, man, we want to go, and man, this would be so awesome. Let's go enter Sabbath. Let's go sit on the back of the old parked car and watch the sun set on the beautiful, snowy Saskatchewan prairie. I want to go and experience this. It would be so awesome. And my dad said, no, we have worship here. This is how we do it in this home. We have sunset worship in the living room. This is how we do it. And my brother said, what? What a joke. I don't want to be here. This isn't even relevant to me. This doesn't do anything for me. I want to be out there and experience the Sabbath day in creation, in nature. This isn't God. This is tradition. This isn't about God and truth and all that. This is just tradition. And that was what snapped for my brother, was Sabbath sundown, inside or outside. That was the last straw. And it hurt a little bit when it snapped. It hurt a little bit. But it was very quickly into this honeymoon and ex-boyfriend syndrome. Before we get to that, though, I just want to be sensitive here. There are many of you in this room. What I just described, you're probably saying, man, you're like reading my mail. Or it's not the same, it's similar. Like, yeah, I look at these videos online because these guys like Richard Dawkins, this new atheism, it's selling by the millions of copies, dozens of languages these books are going into. And these books are new. Right? It used to be, either God exists or doesn't, but religion's good for society. Think Benjamin Franklin. To then, religion isn't the problem, but it prevents us from the necessary revolution to fix the problem. That's Karl Marx. Religion wasn't the problem, Karl Marx. It was a hindrance to have a revolution to fix the problem. Well, now, there's this new mass movement that religion not only is not the solution, and it's not a problem, religion is the problem. That's different. I was watching a Christopher Hitchens video. It's kind of four guys were going to talk about Christopher Hitchens, Richard Dawkins, Stephen Hawking, and Sam Harris. Well, I was watching a Christopher Hitchens video, and he was in Canada. He's British. He was in Canada, and he was just slapping the Canadians. Be like, how dare you do with free speech? What is wrong with you? Our society functions, how we solve problems. I mean, as an atheist, I didn't have free speech. I couldn't communicate the truth, his version of truth. But he just like, oh, psh, psh, psh. And I'm on my laptop going, preach, preacher, preach. Some of the best articulations for free speech, which I'm a big fan of, by the way, in case you missed that, are by atheists. Of course, they're a minority, so they like free speech, right?
And the crowd was just silent. He was like, and then he switched to religion is the problem. Horrible cause of evil. It is the cause of evil. And I got quiet, and the audience started cheering. Right? That's different. You wouldn't have that 20 years ago. But he's not to the same degree. I ask him the same questions. Well, I want to talk not only about those questions, and this is hard for me because I want to line up the evidence. Example, logic, scientific proof. Or, for those who agree on the Bible proof. But I'm not going to do that today. So sorry to the Orthodox Christians there. Please don't judge me. I want to have a very experiential conversation about our own personal bias and experience. And I can't support this. I'm not going to try to support it. I just want to talk about it. Okay? So it's not going to be a rock'em sock'em sermon. Sorry, Chad. I know you like those. Okay? Well, I want to share a little bit more about my brother's process. So when the rubber band snapped, he went into this honeymoon ex-boyfriend syndrome where man, everything was just, it was freedom. It was like, yeah, I'm free. Don't have all these rules telling me what to do. I can do whatever I want. Don't have to go to church on Sabbath. I can sleep in, watch a movie with my family. I can think whatever I want. I can spend my money however I want. No one's watching me. I don't have to pay tithe. I can donate. He still donates to Adrian World Vision, though. Find that funny, right? But he does it just because he wants to. There's no outside rules or barriers. All the rules are made up anyhow, so I can make up my own rules. Yeah. Now he says, and other people that have left this church have been very clear, I didn't leave for freedom. I didn't leave Christianity so I could sleep around, right? But it was part of his honeymoon experience. Then there was the ex-boyfriend syndrome. All religion is bad. It's all a lie. It's all this fake fairy tale. If you believe it, you're just a flaming idiot. He even had this post on Facebook. I was like, what? He said, man, I sure hope Christians aren't making the roads in Alberta because if they're so dumb to believe in religion, they won't be able to make a straight road. And I was like, oh, no. Here, I'm entering this debate right now. Bring it. I was like, Christians can't make roads. What are you talking about? I've seen the Hagia Sophia, the Sistine Chapel. Anyways, it was ex-boyfriend syndrome. Well, it's been 5 years now. And now he's in the old couple stage. Right? See, in all our relationships, right? We go through these processes. And so if you're considering breaking up with your current belief system, I just want to talk. Let's talk a little bit about the process. So there's the struggle. Where the rubber band stretches, when it snaps, there's some pain. There's going to be some honeymoon, probably some ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend syndrome. Well, now what happens where you land? What happens in the more old married couple stage? Well, 2 years after, first everything was better. About 2 years after, my brother, his wife had already lost faith earlier, but after both of them were now on the same page. 2 years later, they surprised me. I said, it's easier to raise kids in the church. Like, what? Got to wake up early and all these programs you're going to and whatever. I said, no, it's easier to raise kids in the church. And shared how with their oldest child, their daughter, when they were teaching her honesty, it was like, well, why tell the truth? Well, because Jesus wants you to. And because Jesus looks and he sees everything, so tell the truth because you can't sneak anything past Jesus. Tell the truth, make Jesus happy. Well, with the younger son, well, it doesn't work anymore. Tell the truth. Well, why? Well, because we make up these rules because we think society will be better and we want you to follow it. It doesn't have the same punch, And they struggled teaching their younger child honesty more than teaching their older child honesty. This last Christmas break, my brother and I spent many hours, very sleep deprived, up till 2:30, 3 o'clock, many nights, talking about all sorts of stuff with him. And he surprised me. He kept talking about how he missed seeing his friends on Sabbath. It's just automatic. You go to church, you see your friends, hey, let's go hang out Saturday night. If it's Nathan Geigo, let's go hang out in 3 months. We have this issue over there. I got you. Right? But the friends you see every week. And And he asked me this question. He said, how can you believe in God? I'm surprised. Well, I was surprised by what he was saying. How can you believe in God? And I was like, in the back of my head, I was like, yes! I've been waiting for this question for 5 years. In front of my head, I said, well, and I honestly feel this way. I think there's two main things. Well, first of all, I think there's evidence on both sides. There's problems on both sides. Let's be honest. There are problems on both sides. There's evidence on both sides. When I zoom out and look at the overall picture, I personally think the evidence is better on the God side. But the other main area for me, and I think we all underestimate it, especially nerds like me, we overestimate the evidence in our decisions, is I think the experience is better here. I think I'm happier over here. I think in the real world, I'm more free as far as like really free. What I would experience as the freedom I want anyhow. My brother surprised me. He said, I'm surprised him. He said, I don't know if you're, I think in some ways you're happier believing. I was like, who are you and what have you done with my brother? He said, well, yeah, because with church, there's this whole belief system. Wondering what to believe. Well, it's kind of this, when you go, it's kind of this polished belief system. You say, back of your baptismal vow, back of your baptismal card there. There's this belief system kind of like, here, this is what is true. And this is the right way to live. It's kind of pre-made. Otherwise, you got to make everything up yourself. And I was like, huh? But the experience is very important. And I think it's evidence and experience. And I think I overestimate evidence. And I think you do as well. So I want to explore the other side. My brother actually got mad at me. We were discussing. And he actually got mad. I said, stop talking so much about science and evidence. And I was like, what? Did the atheists tell the Christians we're debating whether God exists or not that I'm using too much science? He said, yes. Because he always evidence. There's no evidence for God. I was like, well, when you ask me for evidence, I will happy to sit you down and go through a list. But he doesn't want to hear it. So there's no evidence, but we hide behind that. I hide behind that. So let's talk about some subjective, this is painful, subjective, bias, emotional reasons that I think make more sense to believe in God. Believe in God. Okay, and like I said, normally we definitely focus on the evidence. And as we're talking about these very subjective, emotional, maybe even illogical things, I want us to start off with there's green grass on both sides. And like anything, if you're struggling in your faith, you're ready to jump ship, before you jump to the other side, let's be honest, there's brown grass. You're seeing all the brown grass here because you're here. But I want us to explore a little bit of the brown grass on the other side. Now again, most people who leave the faith don't go all the way to atheism. But here's what I'm going to suggest. As you move further from the faith, you move further from believing there is a God, in particular the God of the Bible. As you move further from that, you're moving closer to there is no God. Not that you embrace it, but you're moving closer. So let's talk about what that means. What are the implications of that? What are some things that I think matter over there? Well, first of all, you can learn about, we're going to talk about the illusion of mind, okay? If there is no God, then all we have left with is just chemistry and biology governed by the laws of physics. That's all there is. Well, if that's all there is, the experience you have of a mind is an illusion. Okay? I'm going to unpack this a little bit now. It's just an illusion. So Sam Harris says, you have a very meaningful experience as a person, right? I navigate through life as Walter Rogers, the person, and you're Tina, okay, the person, right? And you're Christine, the person, right? And you're Russ, the person. But it's really just an illusion, right? You don't have a mind, right? You don't, it isn't a person. We just pretend there is. We just pretend it's that way. You're really just a complex chemical reaction. Your heart, your emotions, right? Your body, all this. If there's no God, you are a complex chemical, self-replicating reaction. Christopher Hitchens, the free speech guy, before he died of cancer in 2011, from pneumonia related to his cancer, he'd go to the doctors. And the doctors were talking about his body. Your body is fighting. Your body is giving into. Your body is this. Your body is that. Eventually, he cut him off and said, I don't have a body, doctor. I am a body. If there is no God, then we are just biology. That makes us uncomfortable. And to be honest, being uncomfortable doesn't mean it's not true. If you have a teenage daughter and you meet her boyfriend and he's some loser, you're uncomfortable with that. Does not mean it's not true. But this doesn't work. Go home and try treating your wife or your husband like they're biology. Try it out, Josh. Tell me how it works this week. Right? Treat your children like they're just a complex chemical reaction, Julie. How's that going to work? It just doesn't work. We can't function that way. But that's the logical conclusion, the implication, if we're honest and follow it where it leads. Now, I'm not using this, okay, because for people that are asking questions, I got to apologize. As pastors, we'll prove it by the Bible. If you don't believe the Bible, it doesn't mean anything. It's like you proving Muhammad by quoting the Quran. That's your book. I don't quote the Quran all you want. I don't care. I'm just comparing here, okay? If you're asking these questions, just comparing here you are biology to, the Sabbath school memory verse. Verses changes to Genesis 1:27. So God created mankind in his image. In the image of God, he created them, male and female. This verse has changed history. This is a critical verse for the abolishment of slavery. Why is slavery wrong? Because we're all in God's image. Why is oppressing women wrong? Because we're all in God's image. Why is treating anybody you disagree with? Why is treating people with Make America Great hats wrong? Wrong because everybody is made in God's image, right? The Trump fans and the social justice warriors. We're all made in God's image. This works way better. Doesn't mean it's right. I just think it works better. Now this one, try not to preach too much on this one. Hold me back. Illusion of free will. If there is no God, if you move away from this, you're moving closer to this. And if there's no God, then everything is just chemistry and biology governed by the laws of physics. And that means that every choice you think you're making, that means that your free will is an illusion. Every choice you think you're making is just like this nonviolent, politically correct game of war. Welcome to 2019. So we have the illusion of free will, right? Shuffle the cards, like, oh yeah, I have choice. But if everything is just chemistry and biology, okay, just like this game of cards, once the cards are dealt, the outcome's already determined. I don't know what it is. Here, you figure it out. Okay? See that? Outcome's already determined. The top card's the top card, the bottom card is the bottom card, everything in between. You come to a decision, which motivations are stronger? I got an ace of unity and 9 of diversity. Ace wins. The next choice, 7 of unity, a king of peace. King wins. A 6, 9 of unity, a 7 of love. Love loses. Every choice is predetermined. It's just a response. It's just a response to an incredibly complex game of interactions, internal and external, between you and your environment. The free choice, free will, is just an illusion. The brilliant a cosmology scientist, Stephen Hawking, said this. He had a lecture on determinism. Everything is determined. He says, man is determined. Everything about man. It doesn't matter because you can't do anything about it anyways. Right? You have no choice in the matter. Everything is determined. But this doesn't work. He even admits it. He says, I have noticed that even people who claim that everything is predestined and that we can do nothing to change it, look before they cross the road. Well, if there is no God and all we have is biology and chemistry governed by the laws of physics, then this is just a really complicated game of cards. Like a million domino game where every domino affects something else and everything just interacts, but everything eventually is predetermined in some way. Well, how does that work? Because if our actions result from our choices, so if I have no choice, then anything that I act, anything I do, I'm not responsible for. If I'm not responsible, then I'm not accountable. If I'm not accountable, it just collapses. If I have no choice and I go and do the action of getting a bunch of guns, go in the 32nd story of a hotel in Las Vegas and kill 58 people, if there's no choice, there's no responsibility, there's no accountability. We can't function that way. That doesn't work. That doesn't work. Just watch a video this week. Most millionaires in the USA, most of them are not born to rich families. Most of them do not win the lottery. And most of them aren't rich because they got a super awesome stock investment. Most millionaires pull themselves up through hard work, discipline, and consistent positive choices. Instead of getting mad at the rich people, join them. They pay all the taxes anyhow, already, right? Don't be a victim. You have choices. This gap is so critical. I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying it works. There's everything that happens to us, right? We're not responsible for the cards we're dealt. We're born with certain cards. I'm not responsible. I was born in Canada to Christian parents, but I am so thankful I was. But we are fully responsible for how we play the cards. You're not responsible for being raped, but you are responsible to do the best you can with the rest of your life and to seek counseling and seek help. Right? That is what works the best. That gap, as Stephen Covey talks, between stimuli and response, the gap there's free choice. So powerful. This is the most disturbing one for me. Most disturbing, no. And over here again, I'm not saying it's true. I'm just saying I think it works way better. Over here is what we learn. This is Moses talking. He says, today, he's talking to the children of Israel, he says, today, I've given you the choice between life and death, between blessing and curses. Oh, that you would choose life. He gives them and says, you have choice. Please make good choices. If you don't have choice, you don't have responsibility, and we don't have accountability, and that doesn't work for society or your family. For many of you, this will be the most disturbing one. If there is no God, then everything is just chemistry and biology governed by the laws of physics, and that means that nothing really has value. Now, people have found some shiny things in the dirt before, some beautiful things. They have sold everything to get this, only to get it tested and realize this isn't gold. This is fool's gold. This is iron pyrite. But if everything is only biology and chemistry, everything that you think is precious, people, love, relationships, it's all just make-believe. It's all just an illusion that we agree to cooperate with. There's nothing valuable about this or this. This is a piece of plastic with some designs on it. It's a piece of paper. I can't eat this. This is useless. It's just make believe. We just pretend this matters. It doesn't. You're stuck on an island, you can't eat this. I was thinking about pretending for shock value, but I thought it would get distracting. Okay? This, I was on purpose. This has value. If you're stuck on an island, this will help you. This doesn't. Even gold, talk about gold value, gold is useless, pretty much. You don't use it to make weapons, right? It's pretty, but that's just the value we give to it. We make the value of gold up for the most part. It is a good conductor in some ways, right? There's better though. But gold doesn't really do anything better than anything else. All the values you think are precious is just a fairy tale that we agree to play along with. It's just a big box of fool's gold. Well, even though we will admit that, at the end of Richard Dawkins' book, he tries to rescue this very depressing conversation. My own bias, I think it's very depressing. Maybe you find it amazing. He tries to rescue it with this. He says, think about it. On one planet, and possibly only one planet in the entire universe, molecules that would normally make nothing more complicated than a chunk of rock gather themselves together into chunks of rock-sized matter of such staggering complexity that they are capable of running, jumping, swimming, flying, seeing, hearing, and capturing and eating other such animated chunks of complexity. Think a lion and a zebra. Capable, in some cases, think human, of thinking and feeling and falling in love with yet other chunks of complex matter. If there is no God, none of that matters anyhow. It's just a fairy tale that we agree to pretend is real. It's just a piece of paper with designs on it. Everything that you hold precious is an illusion. Your personhood, your free choice, and anything you value. I had some brown grass over here, folks. That's some rotten brown grass. Now, I'm not saying there isn't brown grass on this side, and I got to own that as a pastor. There's a reason people are leaving the church in Christian nations like Canada and America, and we got to own that. They're not finding Christianity compelling, and they're moving away. They might not be embracing atheism, but they're unembracing this. Well, if that's you, I just want to take a little moment and say, okay, we got some issues here. Before you jump, know the honeymoon's going to end and you're going to land over here somewhere. You're going to land over here somewhere. It's really ironic. My brother believes there's no free choice anymore. When he left in the honeymoon phase, like, freedom! And now I talk to him, there's no free choice. Everything's predetermined. I'm like, are you serious, right? But that's his honest opinion. And, I should apologize. Are you serious, right? I don't want to discredit that. I don't want to be disrespectful. It's my little habit, right? Maybe that's why people move away from faith. Pastors like us treat people who disagree with us. Are you serious? Right? I'm serious. Not on purpose. Well, compare that over here. Again, I'm not trying to be cute. I'm just putting a contrast up. Behold what manner of love the Father has lavished on us, has bestowed on us, that we should be called the children of God. That's real value. And that's given from outside of us. That you have value as a person. You have choice as a person. You are important. You are more than just your body. And if you're not happy with your body, we believe you'll get a new body. You have to be more than your body in this definition, because you're going to get a new one. Right? But if not, you are your body, you are your biology, and all these other things is just an illusion. Well, before you break up with the belief system, I want to ask you, can we first talk about it? Let's go to Starbucks this week. Let's go to Tim Hortons. Come back next week to continue this conversation. Because for me, I don't like this. There's no mind. There's no free will. There's no value. I hope there is more, and I hope we are more. And I want to suggest that maybe our best hope for that hope is God. I want to close with this last challenge. If your faith is hanging by a thread, and you're not happy with the version of Christianity that you see. You know, when people leave Christianity, I don't say, I left my version. I always say, I left Christianity. I left the church. But the church, as you perceive it, that's your version. And I have a version. Everyone has a different version. The version of Christianity you find isn't compelling. I want you to think about this. The original version of Jesus, the people who were nothing like Jesus liked Jesus. The people on the outside, right? The prostitutes, the pimps, the tax collectors, the dealers, right? The people who were nothing like Jesus liked Jesus. They found Jesus compelling. So the version of Jesus or religion that you're rejecting might be the wrong version. So when I talk to people who rejected Christianity, including my brother, I've had the most conversations with him, but others as well. They talk about the things they reject. I agree with them. I reject the anti-fun God. I reject the anti-science God. I reject the tradition God. I reject all these. Well, come back next week, because next week I want to invite you back. Let's talk about these gods, and let's reject them together. And hopefully we can talk about, if God exists, what is the real God like? Let's pray. Dear Lord, in the Bible, in the story of you, in your biography in Matthew 12, you said, a bruised reed you will not break, and a smoldering candle you will not snuff out. And Lord, in this room right now, there are people who are hanging on by a thread. They're almost ready to leave Christianity, to leave religion, Lord. And I pray today, Lord, that they would feel the gentleness, Lord, that I hope you can communicate through me, Lord. That their questions are real. These problems they have with faith, these aren't just made up, Lord, that some of these are very valid. And as a church, we have to apologize, especially as a pastor, we have to own this. That, Lord, maybe the version of God they're walking away from isn't the real one. And maybe their thing they're walking towards isn't so good after all, isn't so free in the end. Lord, I pray you'd be with all of us, Lord. Bless us in our journey. And give us these safe spaces we can ask hard questions, where we can grow up and learn an adult faith when our childhood faith doesn't cut it anymore. In Jesus' name, we all said, amen. So this week, as you continue in your journey, either in your struggle with faith or with a loved one who's struggling with their faith, I want to leave you with a blessing. May the Lord bless you and protect you. May the Lord smile on you and be gracious to you. And may the Lord, if he exists, may that Lord, the real Lord, show you his favor and give you his peace. Go in peace. And if you're struggling, come up here in peace. I'll give you a Starbucks card. Have a wonderful week.